secret team, and these are key Wall Street, principally Wall Street insiders who are behind the scenes. The CIA agents who have been placed in different agencies stay there despite changes of administration, and so they're like moles inside agencies, and they take orders from the powers at the top. And he's got this elaborate process that he describes of the CIA penetrating the Pentagon over the decades that he was there. He was an Air Force officer, and he saw CIA agents getting established in the Pentagon, and this concerned him at the time. Well, the CIA was created back in the 40s by Wall Street lawyers and bankers with a lot of help from Nazis. They brought a lot of Nazis in. They liked their expertise. One very important one was Reinhard Gehlen. He was very involved in the creation of the CIA. So the CIA gets a lot of money from government taxes, and so there's a budget and all. But actually, it has many other sources of funding, as we've learned over time. The CIA apparently has been involved in running drugs for decades, and so it has been able to launder profits from heroin and cocaine and crack smuggling worldwide, and it also does the same with drugs. With guns. Iran-Contra made it clear that secret sales of arms was a source of funding for CIA operations. And Peter Dale Scott and some others have suggested that a key reason for the determination behind going in to attack Afghanistan was the fact that the Taliban had been interfering with the flow of their heroin monies from Afghanistan. The Taliban had been systematically over several years shutting down the heroin industry in Afghanistan. So let's see. I think I'll take a short break and then come back and talk a little bit more about the CIA, and then carry on. So this will just be like a 1-minute break here, folks. Right back. Okay, so regarding the CIA, I mentioned when it was formed there in the late 40s. Its principal purpose from the beginning, stated clearly in the documents, was the control of foreign governments. And right at the top of the list for the CIA was the control of Western European governments. And it was clear that any means necessary were acceptable. And so this includes coups or assassinations, covert funding of political parties and individuals, and then, of course, as we know, campaigns of terror. As we know, the Operation Gladio in Europe over decades was a terror campaign run by the CIA and the Pentagon through NATO, and so the purpose behind this was to control the political situation in the Western European countries. So actually, the European countries were not nearly as free to determine their own course as they thought they were. The public thought that it was. So the CIA is a good example because it's so clear that its power is based in two areas. It's based in, of course, governmental power, but also in private power. And it's the contention of most people who've studied it closely, if you read books on the CIA, that it's that the private powers behind it on Wall Street are really the key ones, but that the CIA is really a melding of two centers of power: private wealth and government power. Now, other people have said that some of the other U.S. intelligence agencies, like the Defense Intelligence Agency, are at least as powerful as the CIA. And there's some notion that these agencies actually are not always working in harmony. John Judge, who has a long history of good research into clandestine politics, although he's not very, very sharp on 9/11, to put it mildly. John Judge, before 9/11, sort of altered his credibility. He claimed that the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, was actually quite a bit more powerful than the CIA and had greater influence on government policy. He says that the budget of the DIA is about 10 times the size of the CIA. And, there's plenty of evidence that military planners, that the military is having an increasing influence on American foreign policy. So as I said, they're not always working in harmony with one another. And this is because they tend to be run by different cabals of powerful people. Different people are in charge of the DIA than the CIA. And so for each of these agencies, there's a specific group of people, many of whom we don't know. It's not just the government officials supposedly in charge of them, that are determining what they do, giving them their orders. And now, a possible example of this became clear on 9/11. The Pentagon attack in Wedge 1 there, it took out the offices of the Office of Naval Intelligence. This was the first U.S. intelligence agency that was founded back in the 18th century. And the ONI was decimated by the attacks. Hundreds of employees of the ONI were killed. Tens were killed. Many were killed. And so a couple of different speculations have grown out of this. One is that possibly that the ONI didn't like the trend taking place under the increasing influence of the DIA or the CIA, that there was some kind of strike against the ONI launched by the perpetrators of 9/11 because it wasn't cooperating with the long-term strategy. Another possibility that's been advanced is that the ONI, apparently the ONI had analysts researching fraudulent movements of vast sums of money on the order of $250 billion in the years prior to 9/11. And ONI was investigating this, that there were people who were concerned about this information coming out, and so they destroyed the people who knew all this and all the records when Hani Hanjour, just by luck, came along with that plane. So now these kind of complexities around all these agencies are gone into in a couple of very good books, which I provided links to at resistradio.com/forum. One is called Defrauding America by Rodney Stitch. He is an insider. He was an agent. I forget of which agency at the moment. Another good book is Barry and the Boys by Daniel Hossaker. So, if you want to read about the complexities of these agencies and their battles amongst and between one another, and how they work, these books are worth looking at. So I recommend them. So now, but now this operational side is by no means the real complexity here. So I want to get into the planning side, who it is that tells these operational agencies what they're supposed to do. And there's a level above these operational agencies that is determining policy. And this as well is a very complex arena. Obviously 9/11 gives us plenty of evidence for long-term planning. and that includes the propaganda, the disinformation. So where are these plans? Where are these plans taking place? How can we identify where the planning is going on? And who's determining, what propaganda campaigns need to be launched? How do they pick Philip Zelikow and Cass Sunstein? Who selects these guys? So I'm going to just talk now about the complexity of ruling elite planning. This also, like the operational side, it has both visible and invisible components. And of course, I can only really talk factually about the visible components. So I'm just going to single some major ones out here, and I won't go into a lot of detail. But a principal one to keep in mind if you're trying to understand what the U.S. is doing is the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR. This agency, this organization was founded in 1921, goes way, way back. It's been a center of planning of U.S. foreign policy for decades. It's a place where the ruling elite of the United States gets together, the major families whose power and wealth goes way, way back, get together on a regular and organized manner. They bring in, they invite into the CFR people that they think can contribute to their planning. And so at the present time, it has an annual budget of well over $30 million. That figure is probably a few years old. It has a paid staff of hundreds of people, over 200 people. And as I said, membership is by invitation only. It has over 4,000 members. But there are different categories of membership. There are, sort of the outer ring of invited members that number in the thousands. And then there are inner rings of more important and powerful people that participate in the planning that goes on at the CFR. Their major publication is Foreign Affairs, as I mentioned before. And the CFR is undoubtedly the most influential of the U.S. planning groups. And their planning is, of course, it's all done behind the scenes. They do publish things. They have, a think tank aspect to them, but they also function as a round table where key people get together, businessmen, academics, politicians, and talk over what the trends are and where they want to go. Another major and important planning agency is the Trilateral Commission. This was founded in 1973. It was founded by David Rockefeller, the chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, and Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the first director of the Trilateral Commission. This has about 300 members, so it's much smaller than the Council on Foreign Relations. In addition, it's not exclusively U.S., so that members of the Trilateral Commission are also from Japan and from Western Europe. But it's similar in other ways. The kinds of people involved are businessmen, bankers, high government officials, academics, high-level editors and publishers in the media, and a key component are labor union officials as well. And this agency, the Trilateral Commission, its purpose is to try to harmonize business operations between these three blocks of economic power in the world: Japan, Western Europe, and North America. And so this Trilateral Commission has been a key agency behind globalization. And I'll talk about globalization a little bit here. And another one similar to that, but with a different membership, is the Bilderberg Group, which was founded in 1954. And these are also globalizers. These two groups, Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg Group, their principal focus is on what's called globalization, is the creation of a level playing field for all corporations around the world. They're not really interested in people. They're interested in corporations and making it possible for corporations to operate without being hung up by national barriers to the movements of money. And so the membership in the Bilderberg Group is It has U.S. members, but it also is principally European.